Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, protesters disrupt the French premiere of Roman Polanski's latest film following a new rape accusation made against the director. Also, we take a look at the debate here in France over the ban of women wearing the Muslim headscarf or hijab in government offices. We'll be talking shortly to American journalist Karina Piser, who's reported extensively on French secularism. But first, and while the Me Too movement has sent shockwaves through Hollywood, it's yet to prompt the same reckoning in French cinema. Yet with new allegations against the director Roman Polanski coming to light, that could be changing. This time the premiere of his latest film was overshadowed by angry protests, as Catherine Viette reports.
Chanting Polanski, rapist, the public is complicit. Angry demonstrators protested at the Paris premiere of his latest film, An Officer and a Spy.
We are calling for a total boycott. Today, buying a cinema ticket isn't an insignificant gesture. It literally finances the director speaking out. It also gives them legitimacy to be heard in the public space. So yes, it's an act that we consider criminal.
Film director Roman Polanski has been a fugitive from U.S. justice since admitting to the statutory rape of a 13-year-old girl in 1977. Now, a new accusation has come to light after French actress and photographer Valentine Monnier told the paper Le Parisien that Polanski raped her in 1975 when she was 18. She's the sixth victim to come forward publicly. Monnier said she felt compelled to speak after Polanski appeared to compare himself to the hero of his new film, Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish officer wrongly convicted of a crime.
How could he benefit from public funds to instrumentalize history and in doing so rewrite his own to cover up his criminal past?
Monnier's accusation seems to be having an impact. All interviews by the film's stars have been canceled or pulled, and this time around, many of Polanski's powerful supporters in the French film industry have declined to speak out. The French Directors Guild is considering suspending Polanski as it re-examines its rules regarding sex crimes. This follows on the heels of last week's allegation by French actress Adèle Haenel, who says director Christophe Rougiat sexually harassed her when she was just 12 years old. Haenel's interview drew an outpouring of public support in hope that maybe the Me Too movement, which rocked Hollywood, is now finally forcing a reckoning in the French film industry.
Now, it's a highly contentious issue here in France, that being Muslim women wearing the headscarf or hijab. It's banned in French schools and government offices, as are other religious symbols such as the Jewish skull cap. The issue flaring up again recently after a mother was verbally abused by a far-right politician during her son's school trip to a gathering of local councillors. The politician demanded that the woman remove her headscarf or leave. It's part of an ongoing debate on French secularism, or laïcité as it's referred to in French. Joining me now from New York is Karina Piser, an American journalist who's recently returned from France. She has written much about the debate over French secularism, especially in the wake of those terrorist attacks in 2015 and 2016. Karina, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Now, for many in the English-speaking world, the constant battle here in France over the wearing of the hijab raises eyebrows. To see a woman wearing a headscarf in government offices or schools is not an issue in cities such as London, New York, Toronto or Sydney. So why do the French feel so strongly about this?
I think it's based on a number of reasons. There is, of course, French secularism, laïcité, as you mentioned, which is an interpretation of secularism that kind of goes beyond just the separation of church and state, but mandates the state's neutrality toward all religions. And I think over time, especially in the past 3 decades and even more since the terrorist attacks of 2015 and 2016, as you mentioned, this concept of secularism has been reinterpreted to confine religion to the private sphere in a way that wasn't the case earlier in the 20th century.
Karina, let's take a pause for now, because while the heated debate over the hijab continues in France, Other European countries have followed suit by implementing similar laws. However, in some nations, notably the US, Britain and Sweden, no such laws exist, which means women wearing the hijab are now visible in the highest of positions, as this report reveals.
At the start of this year, Ilhan Omar became the first member of the U.S. Congress to wear the hijab, in the process overturning a 181-year ban on headwear of any type in the chamber. Shortly after being elected, she tweeted,
"No one puts a scarf on my head but me. It's my choice, one protected by the First Amendment. And this is not the last ban I'm going to work to lift."
Americans don't have to hide their religiosity. In fact, the right to express it is enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. With her decision to wear a headscarf, Somali-born Omar has become one of America's most visible beacons of multiculturalism. But she's not the only hijab-wearing woman to make inroads into political spaces. Last year, the Green Party's Leila Ali Elmi became Sweden's first member of parliament to wear the hijab. And another Somali-born woman was elected as the mayor of the London borough of Islington in May, the first in the UK to wear a headscarf. Raki Ismail says she is happy to be a role model for women, but that there's too much focus on her headwear.
It disregards the fact that you have views, you have ideology, you have something to bring to the table other than the headscarf.
Also in May, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern sent a symbolic and empowering message of solidarity to Muslim women by wearing the hijab to visit mourners after the Christchurch mosque attack. Despite a rise in Islamophobia and anti-immigration sentiment, and sometimes even as a reaction to it, these women haven't let their choice to wear the hijab hold them back in public life, even though doing so routinely makes them targets. But in other countries, women are finding themselves increasingly pushed out of the public and political sphere when their hijabs are rejected on grounds of secularism or oppression, like in France. Current French law bans face-covering veils in public and headscarves in schools. In October, politicians were filmed walking out of a local assembly because a mother accompanying children on a school trip there was wearing the hijab. Lawmakers on the right now want to extend the ban.
It's a question of equality, brotherhood and freedom. It's still a symbol of oppression, a symbol of submission. There are women who were sent to prison because they wanted to feel the wind in their hair.
Germany has also been cracking down on the wearing of headscarves since Chancellor Angela Merkel pronounced multiculturalism as dead in 2010. And even in progressive Canada, Quebec this year introduced a ban on public employees wearing religious symbols.
Watching that report with me is Karina Piser, an American journalist who has recently returned from France and who has written much about the debate over French secularism. As we saw there, Karina, French politicians are now examining a proposed law that would ban parents from wearing religious symbols even on school trips. It's unlikely to pass for now, but is it a sign that we could see even more stricter controls on this issue in the years ahead?
This isn't the first time that there has been a potential law raised to disallow mothers who wear a headscarf or hijab from accompanying their kids on school trips. The party of Emmanuel Macron has overwhelmingly, I think, in at least the majority of the party, I know there are some divisions internally, but has said that they will not support this law. I think that the fact that this keeps coming up just shows that at least the issue and the certain degree of almost hysteria around the issue isn't going away anytime soon. It was brought back into the public debate over the summer, as you mentioned, over this question of mothers accompanying their kids on trips. And now it's November, and the op-eds and national conversations at the political level and in the media have hardly faded from view. So I think that's clear. In terms of whether or not there will be more laws, that's hard to say.
It does appear, though, Karina, that women wearing the hijab here in France do bear the brunt of this anger. Why is that so?
There's a a number of reasons. One of the arguments that's consistently invoked against the hijab in France is this question of gender equality and women's rights. A lot of the staunchest secularists in French government and in the public debate refer to women in countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran, where there is a compulsory hijab and who have been fighting as part of a women's liberation movement to not have to wear it. So I think that gender equality, even more than secularism, is the argument that is most regularly invoked in this context. And that's why one of the reasons perhaps that women are targeted.
Yet it's also important to note, isn't it, Karina, that we do hear reports of religious coercion, that some women in those communities feel that they are under enormous social pressure to cover their hair.
Absolutely. But I think that a lot of the women in France who are participating in this debate and more critical of, for example, the law that bans the religious signs in public schools, say that it should be a fundamental question of choice. So women, if they choose to wear a religious sign, should have the right to do so, and likewise if they choose not to.
Is there a way out of this issue for French politicians?
I think that it's an issue that is too divisive among the French public. If you look at polling, there is consistently, and how much you trust polling is another question, but there's consistently a slight majority of the French population that expresses a good deal of anxiety around Islam and around the visibility of Islam. Whether or not those public sentiments are in part shaped by the past 30 years of debate on this is something that's worth considering, but it doesn't seem like there's a clear way out, no.
Karina Piser, it's been great speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it for now. You can also connect with us via our Facebook page, that of course being France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. So until our next show, bye for now.